I'm David Lanham, here today for another Green Career interview, and today we are at the National Science Foundation with Jean Pennycook, who is a longtime environmental educator and now is here at NSF as an Einstein Fellow. So Jean, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I've seen a lot of the great work you're doing. And just with that, let's get a little bit of a background on what has been your background in environmental education.
I'm a secondary high school teacher from California, from Fresno, and it's been my long mission to tell children and tell students about how important it is to preserve our environment for future generations. And I primarily educate kids about our global footprint.
Now you're an Einstein Fellow at NSF. Explain to us, what does that actually mean?
An Einstein Fellow is an educator that has been taken out of their classroom for a year across the country, either in science or math, and we come to Washington, D.C. to try and educate people here about what it's like to have the boots on the ground in the education field in the states around the United States, and also help with policy for the people here who make the decisions.
How did you become passionate in the environment? Did you have a teacher or a parent who inspired you to get into the field? How did that start?
As a child, I've always been interested in nature and animals and our natural world, and I see the encroachment of cities, and I see the people's lack of reverence for the animals and plants that have to share this world space with us. I also want to let students know that there are choices that they make as a consumer and as an adult does affect the other animals and plants on this earth, and that's the global footprint message.
Do you have, a proudest moment or favorite parts of your job, that have come over the years?
Before I came to NSF, I worked in Fresno at a school that was an environmental magnet, and part of my the joy that I got there was seeing children actually consciously decide to change their habits. They would no longer get plastic bags at the grocery store, they would get paper. They no longer would ask their parents for rides in the car, they would ride their bike, or they would walk, or they would use their skateboard. So I see that children do change their minds. They are becoming aware, they are being engaged in the environmental movement, reducing their energy, things like that. So yeah, that makes me real.
Tell us a little bit about what you've done, what you've seen in Antarctica.
In Antarctica, I work with the Penguin Research Group. They monitor several colonies of breeding penguins, Adelie penguins in Antarctica on Ross Island. My job is to do the education outreach for that group and translate that science to the K-12 community and the public. And a large part of that message is how those animals in Antarctica are having to cope with climate change. And as they have to cope with it, even in the pristine area of Antarctica, we are also going to have to cope with it here in the Northern Hemisphere. We're just seeing the changes a little bit faster in Antarctica. So the message again is to the public that what we do here, the consumer choices that we make, do have an impact on animals even at the South Pole.
Are there any difficult aspects of your job or, as an environmental educator, getting that message out?
About being in Antarctica, I think you're asking, well, I do live in a tent for 2.5 months and I don't get to take a shower and we have no electricity or running water, so it's very cold and it's very rustic. So some people are taken aback by that part of it, but that's the part I like. If you can't go to the moon, going to Antarctica is the second best place. I love the beauty of it, I love the isolation, and I love being around the penguins.
Let's hear, how did you get to where you are now in terms of, your education background, your training, how did you get on the path of where you are now?
I have a background in wildlife and fisheries biology, so I've always been interested in animals and our environment. And even as a child, I was seeing the pollution and the change in our natural world based on the encroachment of people and the people civilizations. And I grew up in Los Angeles, so you saw, times 10 things happen in Los Angeles. Too many cars, too many people, too many resources being squandered. And not necessarily to enhance our standard of living. So I wanted to get the message to kids, and I've also on a personal mission to reduce my carbon footprint and reduce my consumption. The more we consume does not make us happier. The more we consume does not make life easier. The more we consume just means the more we consume, and it's not necessary to do that, and it is harmful to the other species that that have to live in our world with us, and we don't want to do them harm. So I've been kind of on a personal mission all my life, even since a child. And then to be the gift of being in the secondary classroom and being able to show students on a daily basis through activities and awareness, it's been a gift and an honor to be able to do that.
Well, Jean, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
And for all the students out there, make sure to keep tuning in for more green career profiles. And remember, we can all make a difference.